It's the exciting conclusion to the Mappy trilogy. The third and final Mappy game on the Famicom, and also the final original Mappy game, is nothing like the first two. The original Mappy was a score attack game where you control a policeman mouse and collect items stolen by a gang of criminal cats. The second game, Mappy Land, took the movement and action mechanics of the original Mappy, which involved bouncing on a trampoline and knocking cats over, and moved those to a Super Mario-style action game. Mappy Kids is completely different. The story is that you control one of Mappy's two twin sons, who are competing for the hand of Picky. The stages are straightforward platforming, but your real goal is to collect money in order to build a house. If you play single player, you have to have a complete house at the end of it, and if you're playing two players, Picky will choose whichever sibling has completed the most. You have to clear 16 very long platforming stages to reach the ending. The B button lets you do a tiny little kick that will knock over enemies. It doesn't look like much, but the hitbox seems to be pretty generous for it. Most enemies that you kick will just go flying away, and they don't interfere with other enemies that they collide with. A few of them will just get stunned so that you can use them as steps to get to higher platforms, or float upward and you can ride them. You use the A button to jump, and you have an absolutely absurd amount of air control. On top of that, mashing the A button while you're in the air will cause you to float downward. There's a lot of jumps in the game that require this, with your destination off-screen and invisible to you until you've made your jump. The enemies in Mappy Kids tend to spawn in randomly as well, so it's not uncommon to start a jump and then there's an enemy exactly where you need to be. Sometimes you might be able to kick them, but other times you're going to get hit. Getting hit means you're knocked back, and you go tumbling quite a distance. You also lose a bag of cash, but you can recover that. If you fall into a hole, you'll take a lot more damage, and get sent back to an earlier checkpoint in the level. It's pretty common to get hit by an enemy and knocked into a hole. If you lose a life, you respawn in exactly where you were, so you can't lose any progress that way. While you're running around, you'll see these bricks that you can kick to smash, and a few of these have items hidden in them. The P shirt makes you invulnerable for a short time, the life heart extends your life bar a little bit and heals you, and the special flag, which is from Rally X, grants you an extra life. Also, while you're running around, you might see some roller skates. These will speed up your movement for a short time. At the end of the side-scrolling stage, there will be some kind of exit hole that you go through, and then it's time for the bonus game. First, you pull the slot machine to find out what kind of reward you're going for. Getting a skull is extremely bad because it makes you lose your progress on your house, and then you have to spin again. The second slot machine determines how difficult the bonus game will be, and then you take on a cat in one of 3 special games. The flag game has you raising or lowering flags according to the instructions that slowly appear. Because of the way Japanese is structured, you can't be 100% sure what the command will be until the very end. In the sumo mode, you mash the buttons to try to knock the other cat off the ring. You also have to push toward your opponent to help shove them, and pushing away from your opponent will block their attacks. The final mode has you spotting differences between 2 pictures. There's actually quite a few different possible changes that it rotates through. And the images are all references to other Namco stuff. You'll see Pac-Man, the villain from Rolling Thunder, and Kai from the Taro Jiraga series. Once the game's won or lost, you'll get your reward or have something taken away from you, and then you have your opportunity to buy parts for the house. Because it's easy to lose parts, I don't recommend saving up early on. Instead, buy cheap things, because then you can easily replace them if you lose them. Save the expensive bits for the end. And that's it for how you play Mappy Kids. It's an okay platformer, not one of the stronger ones on the Famicom, but the emphasis on collecting money and treasure gives it a different kind of feel, almost a Euro platformer kind of style. Mappy Kids is fine, but not really brilliant. And before I close this out, there's one more thing. I've been lying to you. You see, single-player Mappy Kids is fine but not brilliant. Multiplayer Mappy Kids is one of the more amazing technical feats on the Famicom. Unfortunately, I don't really have anyone to help me show it off, so this footage is really just me controlling one character at a time. So first amazing thing. It's a split-screen platformer race game. 2 fields both capable of 8-way scrolling independently of each other. Just doing 8-way scrolling on the Famicom was a challenge. Doing it twice, simultaneously, is amazing. There isn't even a special chip here to help it do it. Mappy Kids just uses the Namco 163 mapper, which had been in use for a few years at that point, and this game seems to mainly use it to add an extra sound channel. In 2-player mode, there's multiple paths to picky, and it's all new stages here. During the side-scrolling segments, players can attack each other, and if they get these special shoes, then they can kick enemies up into the air so that they bounce around. And naturally, you can kick those enemies into the other player. The whole point of this is you're supposed to be stealing money back and forth from each other as you run. There's a lot more cash on the multiplayer stages, and the game is a lot shorter when you play that way. The bonus games at the end of the level pit the players against each other. Like most games, multiplayer makes Mappy Kids better. It takes an okay platforming game and turns it into one of the most unique 8-bit action games out there. There's a trade-off between racing to the end of the stage for a bonus and straggling behind intentionally collecting extra treasure. Not to mention the fun when you pull off a perfect move to knock your friend around. If you've got somebody to play it with, Mappy Kids is an experience that shouldn't be overlooked.